Facebook family and friends, what's happening? A little bit of technical difficulties there for a moment. How's everybody doing? Saturday morning. You know what it's about. Formers Anonymous. We get in here, we get her done, uh, talking about issues that pertain to our lives, our lifestyles, our recovery, um, everything we're trying to do to better ourselves, better our communities. Um, as always, Sammy will be joining us here momentarily. Um, So I want to ask you guys a favor right now while we're on here early in the morning. So we had some pretty good growth going with the show. We still do actually. We're getting a lot of what are called secondary views, which means um, after the show is over, people are sharing and watching the videos. If you're watching, man, just hit the like. Go ahead and hit that share button. Put it up as public. Uh, Keep bringing this out there. The more we grow, the more help we can make, for others, and the more our word gets out there. It's important, and we appreciate what you guys do for us. So, again, we love you. Like and share. If you want to follow. You guys can watch from. My personal page, and you guys can also watch from our community, our responsibility page, and you can also check us out on YouTube. So let's welcome Sammy Rangel. As always, I got to share this screen, so I'm gonna have to make my screen much smaller for the large dome that's about to enter. Samuel, what's happening, bro?
Don't even talk to me.
Morning, Sam. Love you, babe. Morning, Amy. Love you. God damn it, she put him first. So, Sammy,
She does that on purpose.
You know what? I'm about done taking this abuse, bro. But you know what?
We're just getting started.
Let me start by saying I forgive you, and that's a struggle for me at times. Forgiveness isn't always the easiest thing to give. Do you ever struggle with forgiveness, bro? Is that something that you deal with?
Not anymore. I mean, I've been through this exercise so long. It just makes. It's like when you exercise a muscle. Now, do I grieve? Do I go through my moments of?
Thank you, Amy.
Do I go through my moments? What's going on? Hold on, I can't see the comments. Let me get there.
Amy said she put your name first because you saved her first, and I helped keep her on her path. She helps keep me on mine as well. So, bang bang, homie.
Here I am. I have arrived. All right, I'm trying to comment. I have to go back to the live stream, I think, to comment. Give me a second here, because I want to say good morning back. But I'm working off of a new computer that is not a Mac. I can't even comment. It won't even let me comment, even on Facebook. There we go. Did it. And then I better say good morning to Samantha, who has the same name as me. Mm-hmm. There we go. All right. So who's all in here so far? So we got two people. All right.
No, we got Amy, Samantha, Jessica. Who else? Raise your hand. Go ahead and give us a little hey there if you're watching. We got 4 or 5 people on right now. Bam,
right.
Best name ever. Whatever, right. Samantha.
Who named their kid Mountain?
You got to ask my mom about that.
Hey, we almost named Selena Smiling Waters.
Smiling Waters?
So yesterday, Samaya was trying to get under her skin, and Samaya said, "Smiling Waters, get over here."
Oh, shit.
Oh, those kids are funny.
Hi, Iris. Good morning, sweetie.
What's up? Iris is back. So the question of the day is,
Do you struggle with
do
forgiveness?
you struggle with forgiveness? And can you tell us a little bit about it? We want to hear from you so we can approach it. Now, if you have the literature, you should know that the 3 pillars of FA are forgiveness, reconciliation, and redemption. And yes, in that order. When you think, and forgiveness is prominent throughout the steps, but predominantly in step 4, a big part of that happens when you have to start doing reflections, right? So look, we all have wounds, and we're really good about talking about those wounds in one way or the other, right? Not always in the best way. I talk about a devotion to suffering. And you can talk about a devotion to suffering. You might be in that space where we're devoted to suffering if you find yourself complaining a lot about your past life. When we talk about our life through the complaint filter, it's not that what you're saying isn't legitimate. It's that you're deepening your connection to the past in that negative way. So I want to repeat that, okay? Because that's a major component that I really am trying to help people understand. I mean, and even in these rooms before, like not today, we're just getting started today, but in other rooms, you will see people continuously disclose the complaint. Now, I'm not saying that you're a complainer. That's not the same. The complaint, the grievance, the issue that you're struggling with. People, you might say, we have to forgive. And then somebody might say, yeah, but, yes, I know I need to forgive, but A, B, and C, right? And the problem with that is that who are we trying to convince, and what are we trying to convince them of when we're doing that, right? And that's an important question. What are we trying to convey? And then, what do we think the important part of conveying that is? We don't need to know every detail of your story. We're here to listen, but we don't need to know every detail of your story before you can start healing. Right? That's an important part. As you sit with us, we'll learn more and more about you over the years, right? We'll learn everything you're willing to share with us. But in order to start healing, you don't have to be hurt on all of that. Because we know you have a lifetime of healing, and it might take you a lifetime to tell you that story. Right? And if you're only telling that story, but you're not healing, you have to ask yourself a very tough question: what's the point? I know you want to be heard. You can be heard and healing at the same time, because it depends on the way you tell yourself and others that story, if you can be heard and heal, or just be heard and not heal. Right? Because when we're complaining, and this is not a shameless pitch from my book, the myths of forgiveness, right? When we're complaining, we're hoping that someone can do something for us in that moment. And here's the hard reality that I've learned that we're going to have to pass on to you. The hard reality of that is that there's nothing I can do for you. Or anybody else, to be honest. Even if we do the best job listening, there's nothing I or anyone else can do for you, because this wound is your wound. Now, I think there's a time to like voice your grievance, to voice your complaints about life, about people, places, and things. But the problem is that many of us are still like attached to the hook, right? Like you're still on the hook. somebody threw a hook, you bit in a sense, and you haven't pulled the hook out, right? And as long as that hook is still in you, you can't ever close the wound, right? You can't heal, and you'll always feel the pull of that hook, right? And what does that make us do? When they pull, we either pull back and cause damage and deepen the connection of that complaint or that grievance, or we feel compelled to go towards it. And I would say you're just going into deeper water with a hook in you. The only way through this is to take the hook out. And I'm going to suggest, yeah, that's right, Amy. I'm going to suggest that while it's going to be very painful to pull that hook out, it's only at that moment that we're going to start the process of escaping the past and landing in the future, as well as healing. Yeah, and so Sam said, I have a hard time with this because I feel when I start letting that wound heal, it gets ripped open again. Okay, so let's go back to, if you've never read it, Monte, maybe you could put this in the chat somewhere. It's a book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. I have it on my shelf. I've pulled it out before. One of his opening lines, The Road Less Traveled, M. Scott Peck. One of his opening lines in the book was a stunner. It hit me in the face. It was like I was going 60 miles an hour down the highway and I was forced to stop. Like it was a stunner. And here it is, right? And it's not a very long sentence. It's easy to remember, almost impossible to accept when you first hear it. But it really shook me. It really made me stop. And I've said this before on the show. He said, you ready for this? Life is difficult. That was like the first 3 words I read in the whole book. Life is difficult. Then he goes on to say this. And Sam, this is not directed at you, but I think it could help. It could help in your case. He says, all neurosis, which means like all the mental health problems we have or the complications we have around thinking, the sick thinking, the trauma. He's like, not the trauma, but like how we think about that trauma. He basically says, all neurosis stems from the fact that we don't want to accept the simple fact that life is difficult. He's basically saying we want life to be anything but difficult. And so because of that unreasonable expectation that life not be difficult, that's an unreasonable expectation, right? And we all have it because we all complain about our lives in some way, shape, or form at some point throughout the day or throughout the week or throughout the month or the year or whatever. He's basically saying that because we refuse to accept that life is difficult, we're constantly re-wounding ourselves over and beyond the wounds that are inflicted on us. So if I'm being whipped by life, he's saying that when we refuse to accept that that's a part of life, we also are whipping ourselves simultaneously. So now you got 2 whips on your back, causing all that damage. Here's what I would say. And Sam, is it okay for me to talk about what you wrote? Like to speak directly, to use that as an example? If you're there, let me know. I'll wait until she says something. She might not even be on the call right now.
She's still there.
Okay. The fact that your heart gets ripped open again and again is a fact of life. That happens. Remember, if you were you on the call last week when we were talking about fishing out of a pond, hunting out of the same pond all the time, you're going to get the same food, right? you're going to get the same fish. It's not what we can't stop from happening is what happens to us in life. One thing I can tell you, I'm over here just trying to live a good life, right? I don't fuck with nobody. Excuse my language. I don't mess with nobody. I don't gossip about people. I don't talk shit about people. If I tell Monte something about you, trust me, I've said it to you, or I'm going to say it to you when I see you. Like I don't start shit. I'm just here on my path, doing my thing, not consumed with others, consumed with my family, my life, my friends, you know. I just don't do that. I've matured out of that. And yet my name can't stay out of the mouths of other people for whatever reason. For whatever reason, right? Like,
Yep.
I'm not even talking to that person for years and I'm still in their mouth, right? Like, I can't control that. I'd be lying if I said that when they do that, it doesn't sting a little because I'm human. But I don't expect anything else. Like, before I used to get really frustrated by it, you know, and be like, why? You know, and now I'm just like, you know, that's on them. You know, it starts to shed the amount of weight that it has on me. So the fact that you are trying to forgive, trying to heal, has nothing to do with the fact that you keep getting hurt again. Here's what forgiveness will teach you in some ways, that you're strong enough to take whatever life throws at you. I want you to let that sink in, Sam. See, when you can acknowledge that you're strong enough to take whatever the world throws, regardless of what you're doing, you can take the next step with confidence that it's not going to stop you or interrupt you from what you're trying to do. It might help, and this is just now speaking generally, it might help if we stop fishing out of the same ponds. We don't want to do things that attract the same thing from happening. Remember, and I don't remember if it was Sam last week that said, yeah, well, the same thing keeps happening to me. You have to take some ownership if that keeps happening, right? And just for example, if I go to give me a Cutthroat bar in Racine, Monte.
I don't know any bars. Mr. Cools.
You know all the bars. No, I'm not going
I don't know any of them.
Amy, I know you know all the bars. She's gonna kill me. Anyway, let's make up a Cutthroat bar named Cutthroat Bar, right? So
pretty good.
You go into Cutthroat Bar. You go into Cutthroat Bar. You go into a Cutthroat Bar and you pick up a date. Look, they're about to start outing all the bars. Name 5 churches for every bar you name. How's that?
I can't name any of those either. The Dirty Ho Saloon.
Hey, there's no need to be throwing mud on Monte.
Whoa, hey. Like, I'm just sitting here listening, man. I'm participating, working on background stuff, making sure things work, and here I get hit with the Dirty Ho. Jesus Christ.
You know you're my dirty hoe.
Hey, wait a minute.
So listen. If you go into this bar and you pick up a date and you take it home, what are the predictable outcomes? Just call them out. Monte, anybody. What are the predictable outcomes if you take the guy or the girl home from the Dirty Ho Club or whatever Amy said that way? What are the outcomes likely to be?
Oh, drama.
Call them out. Herpes, yes. That's the least of it. STD. That's the least of it. What else?
Right.
Let's get into this. What the morning after, when you wake up from taking somebody home from the Dirty Ho, what are the outcomes? What can we predict will happen now? Everyone's talking about like the body, but what about the mind? What happens to you in the mind? Yeah, right now. So now we go on a path of healing, but we go back to the dirty hoe bar and date again. What other predictors, right? You can see it all. What are we not doing different when we keep getting hurt? Now,
changing our normal action.
let's go a step further. I got something in my throat. I don't know what it is. Let's go a step further. It's not the bar. It's not the bar. No, it's not the bar. Let me tell you why. It's an old cliche in we know this, Amy. We know this. It's not the bar. This is an old cliche. It's one of the only ones that I agree with out of the old 12-step world. It says, wherever you go, there you are. It's about two things: what we're attracted to and what we're attracting. Right? If I'm in the dirty hoe saloon before you, I'm hoping to attract someone like you. And you're going to be attracted to someone like me, which means that we're both going to be supporting each other in our fucked upness. We're attracted to what's properly and 100% helpful in all the fucked up ways. I know that sounds so weird, right? But if you have someone who likes people who go to the dirty hoe, talking to someone else who likes people who go to the dirty hoe, it's not the best in us that's bringing us together, right? It's not the strengths. It's all the emotionally broken, damaged stuff, all the mentally damaged stuff that's bringing us together. And we're all messed up in our own way, but we click, we sync perfectly. And so now we have a perfectly fucked up relationship in all the perfect ways.
Right.
I talk about this in my book too, about two halves don't make a whole, and how two fucked up people come together and make a completely fucked up relationship. It's the perfect mix when you're fucked up in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about raising your standards, Sam. That comes naturally. Let me tell you, that's a byproduct. Raising your standards is a byproduct. You can raise your standards all you want, but if you haven't done the healing, those standards will never really get you out of the level that you're in. Right. And it's because, Amy, 20 good men, I don't know. I've been at these dirty hoe bars in this current state of life, and you're right. I've never left with anyone because there was nothing there for me. Meaning that that person is not even going to be attracted to you. Remember, we talked about this last week. You know, if you were to run into Mr. Right at the wrong time, he would pass you up, or Mrs. Right. Could be Mr. or Mrs. Right, right? Or the right person, however you want to put that, right? Even if we ran into the right person for us, but we weren't completed inside, that person would bypass us because we're not at the right level inside. You do have to raise your standards, but not in men, but in yourself. Because as soon as you raise those standards within yourself, yeah, Amy, Iris, that's a great way of thinking about that, right? Even if you raise the standards in yourself, well, as soon as you do that, what you attract and what you're attracted to will change automatically. Automatically. Someone who just met me was listening, was asking me about my previous marriage and all this other stuff. And before I even could say anything, she says, "You married your mother, didn't you?" Very Freudian. She just busted out with that. Yeah, Sam, that's right. But we have to be real strategic with the words we use, right? Because you want that energy to know where to go. Right? Because I think that within ourselves is a really important part of any phrase. Right? And so here we are. So when you say, Sam, and anybody says, there was some callers last time, or people who came in last time, who are like, every time I try to do this, I keep finding the same kind of person.
Yep.
I mean, you just have to acknowledge that. Then I say it with love. I don't say it with like I gotcha or it's or hate. If we can't tell you that it's probably something to do with you too, you're never going to really be able to solve that puzzle. And here's why that's good news. Go ahead, Monte.
When that happens, it's almost as if you don't want to solve that puzzle, right? Like we become so complacent in our pain and our suffering that sometimes, right, we don't want to learn that lesson. We want to stay where we're at. We want to continue going to that pain.
No, I don't agree with that because that's a judgmental. I like where you're going, but it's the way you're phrasing it is judgmental, and we got to get away from that because that only depresses people more, right? What you're trying to say, I think, Monte, is we may not even know how. Let me ask you this, Monte.
Okay.
You've tried to quit smoking how many times? You've tried to lose weight how many times?
I lost weight, sucker. What you talking about?
What? Answer the question.
Plenty.
Okay. And it's not because you didn't want to.
Right.
It's more than likely you didn't have the skills, the support, the resources, the knowledge. You didn't. But it could also be that you didn't have the right discipline in place. There's a lot of things, but nobody wants to be this hurting. No one wants to be this sick. And that's what the old school model would say is that, you know what, you're just not ready. You haven't hit your head hard enough. You haven't hit rock bottom yet. Your rock bottom has come. Like that depresses people more than it inspires people. What we want people to know is that a lot of the times you are trying to make these changes, but just don't know how to make these changes. And most people can't even put the fucking cookie down, the ice cream down. Like we're not even talking about the bigger addictions. Well, eating disorders are big, but we struggle to do even basic changes. Do you know that 80% of people who try to diet fail?
I didn't know there was that many.
And there are people who are just trying their damnedest, man, to me too, Sam, that are just trying to change. Remember, we talked about this a long time ago, Monte. Here's what I was taught when I was at WRC after I beat up 4 guards in Wisconsin. I was taught that I need to think about the consequence before I take an action, right? And the teacher is saying it's the ABCD rule, right? I need to know what the activating event is. Okay, I feel this guard disrespecting me. He called me a spick in the day room, right, in front of my peers.
Mm-hmm.
The irrational belief was he's disrespecting me. I need to kick his ass. I can't let him get away with that. The consequence was, well, now I'm angry. I'm probably going to go to the hole. If I beat him up, I'll have to disappoint my family. And then the D is disrupting that irrational belief. And what I should have been able to say at the time was, it's not worth the consequences. It's not worth going to the hole, hurting my family, and being charged. Here's what I said. Fuck all that. It's worth it. I'm going to kick his ass. Now, fast forward. I go through the program. I'm like, oh, I should have thought about whether or not that. Okay. 6 months later, I'm in Green Bay. I finished the program. I'm in Green Bay. I beat up an inmate and hurt a guard. And I couldn't understand later how I did that if I went through this anger management program successfully. Here's the secret sauce here. All they taught me to evaluate was whether or not violence was worth the price I was going to pay.
Yeah.
Now, I evaluated that.
And you were willing to pay it.
And I was willing to pay it. Today, though, here's where they, and that's a setup for failure. And I think a lot of what we've been taught about how to change doesn't go far enough. And it changes the wrong thing. It changes how much we're willing to pay versus the values that we're willing to live by. Today, I live by a nonviolence, peaceful, value or principle, right? Which means that violence isn't acceptable to me at the right price anymore. Like I do everything in my power. I've been out of prison 20 plus years. I do everything in my power to remain peaceful and nonviolent. I'm not filtering it through consequences. I'm filtering it through what kind of person am I trying to be? So, like when Sam and Iris are weighing in here, what kind of person am I trying to be? True to myself. I'm trying to live by these, core values, these core principles as a person. I want to be true to my recovery. And I'm recovering from a life of violence, not anything else really. Like violence is my drug of choice. You know, um, and it's not so hard to do that today. 90% of the time, there are moments when things have happened, that I've shared with my closest people, but I've ended up staying the course even through those very blinding moments because I utilized my groups, my people, and I stayed true to what I believed. But I think anyone would have those kind of struggles with the kind of things we were facing during those moments, right? It's life. It's a part of life. And in
Yeah.
fact, I heard it from M. Scott Peck, but I also heard it from my uncle one day when I went over there when I was separating from Denise. And I said, "How can this happen, Uncle? I live a good life.
I love you, Sam.
I live a good life. I'm a social worker. All I do is help people all day long. I come to lodge and ceremony all the time. Like all I'm trying to do is be a good man. How do I end up here?" And he reminded me, I mean, there's a punch in the nose again. He says, "It's a part of life, nephew." Right? Go right back to the beginning of my change process when I read M. Scott Peck, right? It's when you can accept that these major blows aren't so major. Like they're still major, but they're not like insurmountable. They hurt, like boom, they hurt. But instead of being crippled and paralyzed and inept, you're still able to move forward in life and learn. Sam, what if I were to tell you that inside of all the things that have hurt you in life, that's what you're going to end up standing upon. That's going to be a part of the foundation in which you stand and build the rest of your life, your good life with. Because without those things, you wouldn't have the kind of connections you have to the things that you love today. Right? Like all those wounds mean something today. Right now, when we're struggling to forgive, those things don't mean anything but trauma.
Right.
Right? So, one thing, you go into prison, one of the worst experiences in your life, right? But today, what do you do with that?
I use it daily. I use it daily to combat the thought processes of pain and suffering or addiction. I use it to remind myself that no matter how bad it is, it can be worse. I remind myself of those that I left behind who are struggling to come home. I use it to remind myself to be grateful for what I have, including the problems. Like, I never understood how deeply ingrained the thought process of avoiding suffering was until I realized I had to suffer no matter what. Like, I didn't understand, man. And now when it happens, and as fucking lame as this is, I do follow every statement of "this is hard" with "but necessary," right? Like I use that now, right? Like that reminds me as well. It's another tool that I've gotten in my toolbox, and thank you for it. That reminds me of, yeah, this shit sucks, but it's necessary, right? Like I got to push through this to get to the next stage. I got to push through this to grow to the next place. And like if I despair, I end up going back to what I was, and I'm way better than what I was. You know what I mean? I was great then. I just didn't know it. Like I didn't realize how it was. So without prison and without, look, this is how fucked up it is. If I had gotten out a single day sooner or a single day later, I might not have what I have today, right? So yeah, 18 years was horrible. But how happy am I today, right? Right? How lucky am I today? Right? Somebody asked me the other day, what is something that I've never lost from coming from prison? And it was the dumbest thing ever. Showers. I take 7-minute showers, right? Because for years I had a 7-minute time limit from the moment I walked in to the moment I left. And it's unconscious. I get in, I get wet, I wash, I rinse, I wash, I rinse, shut the shower off and get out, right? There's no enjoyment in my shower. There's no relaxation. It's always, to this day, bro, like to this day, it's a race against time, right? I got that 7 minutes.
Today, I want to challenge you to take a 10-minute shower, Monte.
Well, I'll take a 2-hour bath in my spa tub with the bubbles going and the candles on there. Like I can take a bath forever, but I never got to take a bath in prison. So, you know.
I think it's important to confront those things, right? Like you want to shed that, right? You don't. And so making yourself take a 10-minute shower, right? Doing things on purpose to interrupt the connection to the past. It seems harmless, and it probably is, but it's another stage of growth for us, right? And so if you're still hanging on to that, you know, and you're still hooked, right? It's still got that hook in you. Take a 10-minute shower. And because you're telling yourself and your body, it's not that way anymore. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. That habit, you know, comes from a dark place. You want to shed that habit. And you'd be surprised what it uncovers in other areas of your life of other habits, right? Amy says, it's still a consequence, prison, or even if you don't go to prison, your consequences could be living a life that is less. That is 100% sure. But what if I were to tell you that the consequences could be also living a life that is more? Right? We choose the consequence in some ways.
Right? I would just like to point out, remember, you guys, consequences are not always negative.
Correct.
Like consequences can be,
you go to work, you get a paycheck. Boom.
That's positive consequence.
Right? So Sam says, play music, Monte, shower for 3 songs. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I never thought about that because I do listen to music when I shower. You know what I mean?
He likes Blues Clues quite a bit. Could listen to it 3 times.
I'm done with you, Sammy.
Sorry, I want a divorce. That was told to me in confidence. I shouldn't have repeated it. So Sam, let's go back to your initial your comment, right? When you were like, let me pull it up here. That wound heals, it gets ripped open again. There's some really, I've got some really scandalous ways of talking and thinking about this, right? Here's in your healing journey, I want you to think about a couple of things. When you remember your past and how shitty it was, how shitty it's been, no matter if it's yesterday or years before, when you think of all the shittiness that you've endured in life, I want you to say this, and I want you to type it if you hear me. I want you to say, so what? When you hear that voice in your head going over your past and how shitty it's been, I want you to add to that voice, so what? Type that in the chat for me. So what? When you see yourself going down that path and you hear that voice telling you how shitty your life has been because you're, in your healing journey, you're going to say, so what? Because what you're trying to get at there is, what are you trying to say? Are you trying to say that that's what I focus on over this? Now I'm going to introduce the second controversial concept that is true to FA. This is something that we preach here, and I think we're the only ones who do preach, so to speak. You have to learn to suffer well. What we all have been doing until we get to that moment is suffering pointlessly and worthlessly. When the suffering doesn't lead to monumental steps forward, we're not suffering well. I'm at a stage in my life, and I think we can all get there, and I think Monte's on his way there, is almost immediately after something happens, I know something great is coming out of that. something, a lesson for me. One thing Monte left out, or maybe he touched on it, but I want him to really own this, is he left out that he's helping people as a result of his past. Who in his personal life, who he hires, right? He gives a lot of people like opportunities. He's there for people. He'll meet with people for breakfast and coffee and dinner, like to talk. He'll get out of bed at 2 o'clock in the morning to go support someone. He does FA with me religiously for years now, right? He wouldn't be doing that if he hadn't, more than likely, if he hadn't been through every shit story he's got to tell you, right? He has suffered a lot since he's gotten out, a lot, as we all know. And you know what? He's suffering well through all of that. And the well part means I'm wiser, I have emotional intelligence, and I'm a lifelong learner. Meaning that we recognize, that this is a part of life. What were you going to say, Monte?
And it might be a little bit of the forced Catholicism on me. But when I help people, I tend not to think of it as me doing something for free. I spend a lot of time thinking about it as penance, and not as a bad penance, but as what I have to give back for what I've taken, right? Like I feel a debt to my community and to the world, right? Like to the universe. I feel like I stole so much for so long, even if it was just being misguided and being, unaware. Like I feel like I stole so much from so many people that I have to give back, not for them, not for the universe, but for my own sense of peace inside. The most poignant thing I ever heard was an interview with Mike Tyson. And he was talking, and there's controversy about his life and everything else. And the guy said, he asked him a question. Mike Tyson said, my most greatest time was while I was in prison. And the guy dude said, what? Not when you had $40 million sitting on your table? He says, what the fuck good was $40 million? I didn't have my peace. He said, without his peace, right, he couldn't be happy. He was like, he said he would have paid that 40 million to someone just to give him his peace, right? He didn't have that inner peace. And for me, when I my driving force of doing good is my inner peace, right? Like it helps me weigh out my scale for the damage that I've done, right? And I don't know if I'll ever get to an equal, right? I don't know if I'll ever get to a center point on that, right? Like I heap as much help as I can, as often as I can, right? To keep it from sitting down, right? So I don't know if my scale will ever even out internally, but it really does. Like when people think I'm doing it selflessly, trust and believe, I love you, but I'm doing it selfishly, right? This is what's helping keep my inner peace. It's helping me deal with the loss of my son. It's helping me to deal with the loss of my childhood. It's helping me deal with the struggles my children now have seen and went through. But I appreciate that heads up, that acknowledgement, bro. It meant a lot to me.
Yeah, and the other thing is that's going to mature, because that was my motivation for many years too. And what you're going to recognize is that when you have forgiven yourself in these areas, not that you deserve it, it's almost necessary, right? That when you move to forgive yourself holistically, what you're able to give, what you've been giving will be a drop in the bucket compared to what you become able to give when you do that.
Uncle said something similar to that at our last ceremony. Iris, I love you. Thank you. Our men need healing, right? Like our men need to come back to where we were. Liz, listening to podcasts about different healing modalities really helps me. Yesterday, I listened to Tim Fair. Oh, I like Tim. And yep.
So the other thing, Monte, is this. Look, we yes, as formers, we're consciously aware that we have what I call we have created a trail of tears and victims, right? And so the service work we do is our conscious decision to constantly stay humbled in that fact.
Yeah.
But remember, I've told you and others, guilt is not the same thing as remorse. And we know that there's seeds or segments of guilt in there when we're still struggling with the debt that we owe. When you accept the debt that you owe, you'll always do service work.
Mhm.
And you'll do it for better and brighter reasons other than what you owe. Because the burden of what we owe is ours and ours alone, but it can interfere with the responsibility and the duty we have to help the community heal. Because when you have that kind of guilt and shame, you feel less than, which means that you're not showing up as a whole person.
Mm.
You're showing up as part of a person, right? And if we're going to ask people like Sam or Iris or Amy or Austin, whoever's listening, to heal, but we haven't done it completely as well, or not in the process, because you got to cycle through that all the time.
Yeah.
If we haven't done that to the full extent of our abilities, they'll detect that, or it'll be transmitted in some way, which will make your message kind of like distilled and watered down.
Ooh.
When you embrace that you have changed, it doesn't mean that your debt is over. It just becomes a part of the bigger picture. Because the debt, when it's the debt that leads you, that's the big picture.
Mm.
But there's a bigger picture than the debt. And the bigger picture are the people that need us, right? The people that we can be there for. And so you imagine if you can carry 10 things to like in a first aid kit or food to, people who need it. And one of those bags is your guilt. What can they do with that?
Right.
Right. What could you have had in that bag instead of that?
I don't know. I would name it as guilt. It's just the drive. Like I need to do good. Right. Like
That's
I
why I'm
need
in
to
your
keep
life.
my scale.
You don't need to do good. You are doing good. See, there's the difference in the mindset. You don't need to do good. You need to do good is step one for you. That's when you started. You're not started anymore. You're full stride in the middle of this process.
Mm.
You are doing good. You have come a certain length down your path. You need to embrace that. That's the next evolution. Right? It's the next evolution.
Mm.
Oh, my buddy John
Castro.
What's up, John? That's right. We're as I've been told by an elder of mine, I'm nesting in my becoming an elder. Right? I'm getting to that age where they're starting to say you're getting old. But yeah, aging well in the fourth stage of our life, right? And Liz says, as a social worker, I understand that my inner healing work will in turn help those I serve. Absolutely. What's my number one rule, Monte? I will never ask someone to do something I haven't done.
Yep.
Right. And I think the second rule has to be transparency. Here I am. Amy, and I think it's funny, right? Because we don't need to do penance, but we're constantly doing service as a result, right? Like we're constantly putting out service, man. Like we're servant leaders. Do you know what I mean? Like and you don't need to be concerned with the past anymore. We go there for like to mine for resources. But there's nothing else there for us. That's an attachment. It's an attachment, and you're just making my case for me, right? It's what we were talking about, that devotion to suffering.
Mm. I told you it was rooted in Catholicism.
There it is.
Right.
I mean, I was raised Catholic. I don't subscribe anymore. I agree with that, but it's if it has to do something with your past, then you know you're still on a hook somewhere. We can go back there, man. It's not like we're done. It's not, it's not over for us. But where we're putting our energy is in someplace else, and it comes from a good place because we've learned the lessons we needed to learn from the shore of our change. But now we're deep into the trail. We're deep into the mountains, into the woods, into the desert. You need to be thinking about other things other than what you owe, because you owe it. You could spend all your time there thinking about that, but what about who needs us? And what about what you need? You can't eat what you owe.
I need tacos.
You can't sustain life on what you owe. You can't even pay a bill on what you owe. What you owe was necessary to focus on in the beginning of your change because we didn't have any remorse. We didn't have guilt. We didn't have shame. We didn't have empathy. We didn't have compassion. So we needed that bundle in that moment to figure out how to reconcile what we need to do. But are you still there? Right? Are any of us still there? And this is such an important part, because when we talk about forgiveness, why is it that on the agenda, the very last item is us? And I think if you're like me, and maybe some of the listeners are too, I didn't feel like I deserved it, and I still don't feel like I deserved it, but it was a gift. It was a gift. And because of my sense of non-deservingness, would I turn down that gift and make someone feel bad about what they're offering me? Who am I to turn down a gift like that?
Yeah.
I don't deserve it. And they're like, what? Like, she's like, I'm trying to give it to you because, not because you deserve it, but because I love you.
Right.
In many ways, that's where we fall short with the forgiveness piece, is that I think you're kind of right when you say it's not guilt, but it's from the playbook of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extension of it. And maybe it's the last little part of the hook, the little barb that's got to come out now. Because you owe your debt, and so do I. But we have a different way of thinking and talking about that part, and that's through our service work. We're always going to do service work, man. I mean,
I don't know what I'd do without it.
So much more.
Without service work?
No, without that guilt.
Oh, I meant I don't know what I would do without the service work and the feelings.
I'd probably clean out my garage. Have time to do that.
I need a lot more time. I got a lot of work to do on that damn garage, bro.
It's coming along. It's coming along.
Still, it is.
Like I'm working progress. What time we got here? All right. So, Martha, I know you got to cut out a little early today.
Yeah, I got a wedding I'm doing today. I'm excited.
Let me read a couple of excerpts from our pillars. And I don't know, do you have the latest version of literature from 4/21/19, right? Can you put that in the Facebook chat?
No, I don't know.
It won't let you put that in there?
Not in the Facebook chat. Hold on, let me see.
Oh, yeah, you're probably right. I think Facebook is a little weird like that. Tell people to private message you if they want it, and then you can attach it.
Yeah, you guys. Hey, if you guys are interested in getting the literature and getting the book, I will send you the PDF file that you can just download and put right in and read it as you please. Print it up, give it away, hand it out. God knows Sammy and I have printed up thousands of copies. Put the link to the website page.
And here is
Amy showing off, getting her all technical.
Wonky.
I can do it right off my phone. Send it to me.
Yeah, right, we'll do that. We can do that after the show.
Yeah.
On the other side of this, I'm going to see where we get to. Here's where we're going to wrap up, Montaña. You can put this in the chat here. This is in the last paragraph of the last of the component around forgiveness. Here, let me put this over here to you. This, I think, is well, I didn't paste very well. All right, there you go. So while you didn't create your life, we do have the power to create life. But what's most important to know is that even though you don't like the way your life started, I think the most important thing for you to remember is that you can recreate it right now. You have the ability to recreate what your life means to you and what it looks like and what it's been.
And isn't that kind of what we're doing?
I think when you do it, there's those of us trying actively, and I think those of us, everyone in the chat who is like struggling, is in the process of recreating. And that's a hopeful message, right? Like, what Sam said really struck me. She's like, I'm trying, but I keep getting hurt, right? Essentially, you have to keep trying because at some point you're going to refine the efforts and they're going to take hold. And you're going to make it. You're going to get there. You're going to get there. But remember, when you hear yourself, I think the most powerful thing you've said, Sam, is, I'm trying, more or less, in some of the, I'm just reading into the words, I'm trying. Stop right there, because that's the most important thing. It's not what happens as a result of trying. It's the fact that you're trying. It's the fact that you put sweat equity into all of that. Absolutely, Liz. We're trying. You didn't create the life you have been given, but you can recreate the life you've been given in your own image, not in the image of others. The people that hurt us make us feel like we're not lovable. That's on them. That's right, Iris. That's on them. I'm happy for you, Amy. I want you to focus more on the recreation side, not on how it started. None of us have beautiful beginnings. But as Kung Fu Panda said, you can have a beautiful ending. I actually cried at that part, and my kids knew I was crying, and they all looked at me at the same time. Right? My life was not pretty, and I'm sure a lot of yours wasn't either in the beginning. But I can tell you, I've never experienced so many pretty things as I am right now.
Yeah.
I'm in love with my life, man.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Even when it's hard, right? Like, even when shit ain't perfect, it's pretty fucking cool, man.
You know what I love about the hard parts, Monta, is that oftentimes I'm able to stand with someone through those, or someone standing with me through mine.
Yep.
I wouldn't exchange that for anything.
Yeah, dude. It's funny because like, I didn't understand how important it was to have a strong circle until I fell down out here. Yeah. The second I'd grown up on the ground, but yeah, it is definitely something that I'm absolutely grateful for. All of you guys who reach out and check on me when I need it and recognize the fact that we're all human and we all need that, right?
And you want to know what's crazy, Monte? You ready for this bitter pill? It's always been there.
We just never accepted it. Yeah.
We couldn't receive it.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't know how to take it. Even in the most desolate parts of my life, there was always at least one person.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy because as soon as I came out of my lonely world and realized I needed to change, I realized I wasn't always alone. It just felt like I was, but I had a bunch of people who were there for me.
Pounding on the door while we kept it closed.
I couldn't even hear them. I couldn't even receive that message, man. It was crazy. And now some of those people are still in my life. They're just grateful I woke up. You know, they're grateful I woke up.
Absolutely. Right. We woke up.
They're like, finally.
Right.
You're out of your coma.
Right.
It felt so real, though.
Yep. No, yeah, absolutely, man.
Monte calls himself Superman, right? And I call myself Batman because I really just want the riches. It's not because I'm smart and have cool toys. I just want the riches.
Right.
But the reality is, Sam, that even the strongest of us and within us, we still need moments and places where we can be vulnerable, right? Where we can be just not superhuman, not super strong, just vulnerable, where you don't have to have your guard up. You don't have to have your strength on. You can just be Sam, and I have that, and Monte has that, and it's uncomfortable in the beginning because we feel as I'm going through some executive coaching right now, and here's what my coach said to me. She said, "You're seeing tigers where there aren't any." And it was because I came out of a jungle.
Right.
No, but I'm not in that jungle. Right? I'm not in that jungle, but I'm still living like the tigers are going to jump out at any stage right now, right? And they very well might, but I don't have to live like that. I can still be cautious. I don't need to be paranoid.
Absolutely.
And you can lead with trust, even if you're mistrusting. It's your mistrust that brings in more of the damage that you're trying to avoid. It's almost like the opposite. You think, well, if I'm trusting, I'm not saying gullible. If I'm trusting that maybe somehow I'll get hurt, has you being mistrusting kept you from getting hurt? No. I mean, just think about that, right, Monte?
Yeah.
All of us who are mistrusting, how many of us have not been hurt as a result of being mistrusting?
Right.
You probably get hurt more than the people who are trusting, because the people who are trusting accept that life is difficult and that they can take the blow and that they will be just fine, and they move the fuck on and they level up. Bam. They learned a lesson. Right? It's the mistrust. It's the unwillingness to forgive that keeps all that same shit happening. Like, that's how we start at the top of the call. Once you heal and you become trusting, you become forgiving, the world stayed the same. The only thing that's changed is me and my perspective of it and of the things that happen. And I'm free. I feel good about that life.
Mm-hmm.
Try it once. Just do some low-level trusting. Do some low-level forgiving and watch what happens to you.
So here's the thing, and people think it's hard, but without even thinking it, you can say, I trust nobody. But you do. You trust your job to pay you. You trust your toilet to flush. You trust people to answer you when you ask them a question. Like, there's a lot of trust that we don't even realize that we're using when we do. You know what I mean? Like, it's not impossible. Like, I had problems trusting, and I still do. Right? It's something I have to consciously work on. When people tell me something, I'm skeptical generally, right? Like, especially if it's something that seems to be, more than what it is, right? That's why I tend not to overcommit.
Skeptical person I know.
What's that?
I feel like you're the least skeptical person I know, though.
I know you feel that way, but I'm not, right? Like, I spend a lot of time questioning people's motives and then deciding whether or not, right? If they screw me, is worth me being upset about. Like, it's not that
I
huge
think,
thing
look,
these-
try this, Monte. Try this. Lead with trust. Lead with trust. From now on, lead with trust. Somebody reminded me the other day, because I was saying, I got a lot of reasons to want to take things slow with people, right?
Mhm.
And he said, tell me which one of your mentors told you that it was going to take 2 years for them to trust you.
Mm.
None of my mentors ever said, me trusting you is going to take time. That was what they did, was open up their world to me and said, do with it what you want, right? No attachment to it.
Right.
Do with it what you want. And what I felt immediately was accepted, belonging, included, loved, at the lodge. Who treats you like that?
Right.
I mean, who treats you the way you just described?
Nobody. We're at the lodge.
And,
we're at ceremony.
and look at them. Look at them. Look how they live. Look who you look up to.
Yeah.
Look at the leaders you look up to. None of them talk like that.
Nope.
Right? Lead with trust. Start there. Everything else will take care of itself, because you know what? Even if they break your trust, Monte, it was worth it.
Yeah.
You found out what the real status of affairs was transparently, openly, quickly, or you gained a whole nother world to your benefit, man.
Hey, brother, what time we meeting? I'm gonna assume. Hey, let me put this on mute. Hold on.
I know you got to head out. Well, let's wrap it up, man. We can start wrapping this up. Monte, I knew he had to. Guys, it's been amazing. My ask for you today is to try to lead with trust, man. Give it a shot. And you don't have to trust like opening up your bank account. Make it small, but if you start there, it's better than when you start with an untrusting spirit. I can't explain it. You have to give it a shot, man. It doesn't mean to be super vulnerable. It doesn't mean to be naive, gullible. It doesn't mean that. You got to use your common sense, of course. But as a rule, a part of the forgiving, that is something that is something you can do this week. And I know it's hard, but it's necessary. I know it's scary, but it's necessary. I know you have been living defensive for a long time for good reason, but you're not in the jungle anymore. The tigers aren't everywhere behind every bush anymore. And if they are, take care of business, do what you got to do. But that is not the main way to live. That's temporary. And then when it happens and it's over, we move on. Much love, everyone. Austin, I love that, man. And even when they give me the reason not to, Austin, I'm forgiving. Doesn't mean I'm gonna do anything, in the same thread if I can. But I know people are fallible, man, and we all make mistakes and we all do things that we can. So
sorry about that, you guys.
All you guys. Yeah, no, it's all good. We're wrapping up now, Monte.
Yeah, I was listening. I'm performing a wedding at 1:30, 2 o'clock today, and
you better get out of here.
Oh, I got plenty of time. It's only 10:45. I'm gonna go shower, shave, get my suit on, clean up, get Birdie, go do my thing, chicken wang. I'm so excited, bro. They're such a great couple, and it's funny because I'm doing his wedding, or their wedding, and then immediately I got to go to my buddy's wedding, and it's at the same venue where our wedding is gonna be. So I'm gonna be able to see what it looks like, all set up and all ready, like. 3 songs, Sam. I didn't forget that. I actually wrote that down. Shower for 3 songs. So I'll make them good songs. Like I'll do some Zeppelin, so I know they're like 8-minute songs. But all right, you guys. I love you guys. Like I hope you guys know, man. your participation in the show, your participation in our lives, it means something to me.
3 times, buddy, in the shower.
Listen, if I got to listen to that 3 times in the shower, I might try to drown myself. I can't do it, bro. Tater watches this show called Coco Melon, where it's like really poorly written and executed children's songs, right? But you guys, thank you again. Like I said at the beginning, we're getting a lot more interaction with the page. We're getting a lot more interaction with the videos. The more that you share, when we're doing the live, hit that share button, put it public. That grows the channel, that grows our viewer audience, and the bigger the audience, the more people.
I got a question.
I got an answer. I don't want to hear this.
I got a question.
What?
What are the odds that we could like do an AMA, where, you know, we do a session where people can ask us anything about our recovery process?
I am down with that. Like,
maybe we should set something up like that. And then is it possible to bring people on camera to make a comment?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you guys know you can interact at any point. If you send us a chat right there in the comments or in the DMs and say, hey, I'd love to come on and talk for a little while, I'll send you an invite. You click on the invite, it'll bring you right into the program. I'll put you up on the screen and we can talk. Like, there's never hesitate to let me know that you're interested in coming on live.
All right, brother. You have a good day. Good luck at the wedding. We'll talk to you soon, man.
All right, you guys. We love you.
Peace out, y'all. I chat next week. Yeah, we can have the original Mob Boss on the show.
She is
the original people behind the show, like who's really the muscle.
I love you more, Sam. Peace, Liz.
Peace out, guys.
All right, you guys. We love you guys. We'll talk to you soon. You have a wonderful weekend.